So about quite a few years ago, I had a really bad accident. I was hit by a car. I almost died. I was This is not. I'm not kidding. Hospitalized for 3 months and so on, and it was pretty difficult. But finally, after 3 months, it was time for me to actually get out, to go outside. And what did I do on my first day? I went to buy some music. Now understand, I'm walking with an orthopedic cane, and I've got a neck brace, a cervical collar that's up like this. So I go and I look much worse than I actually feel. So I go to buy some music, and then I wind up on First Avenue, and I'm going to take the bus. Okay, so I'm waiting at the stop. The bus comes up. I get on. A woman, I would say in her 40s, gets on with me, and we look at the bus. And sure enough, from the back of the bus, all the seats facing front are absolutely filled, right? And then in the front of the bus, you've got the 6 seats for senior citizens and handicapped, right? So here's the driver. Here's a really old guy behind the driver. Then there's a vacant seat and another vacant seat. On the other side, 3 seats, grandma number 1, grandma number 2, and grandma number 3. Okay. The door's open, I get on, the woman who comes on with me sits down, I sit in the middle seat of this side, and the woman sits down here. We're in just a few minutes, we're going to start referring to her as shithead. Okay, so you'll understand why, I promise. So don't you worry and hold on to that saxophone. All right, so we get on, the doors close, and off we go. We go one stop, little old lady gets onto the bus, and she's frail, and she looks really, really weak. Well, shithead doesn't get up to give her her seat. So I get up to give her my seat. And the woman, this very frail woman, she looks at me, she sees the collar, she sees the cane and so on, she goes, I can't take your seat. And I looked at her and said, dear, I look much worse than I actually am. I want you to just get off your feet for a little bit. I'm only going a short distance. You can, take my seat in just a few minutes. So she says fine, and she sits down. As soon as she sits down, the instant she sits down, grandma number 1 says to shithead, what more do you need to see? He's wearing a neck brace and he's using a cane. You are the one who should have given up your seat, not him, right? So I look at grandma number 1 and I say, really, I'm fine. And grandma number 1, without taking her eyes off of me, goes, you're not fine. And then continues to talk to shithead, right? It's people like you that give the city a bad name and so on and so forth. Okay. And then she says, and besides that, this area is for senior citizens and handicapped. You're not a senior citizen and you're not handicapped. Shithead says, well, actually, I am handicapped. I just didn't bring my cane today. Okay. At which point, grandma number 1 gets up, faces the back of the bus, which is full, and says, oh, she's handicapped too. She just didn't bring her cane today. And then with her arm fully extended, she points across at shithead and says, you should be ashamed of yourself. All right, I think that's the end of it, right? I turn and I face the front of the bus when all of a sudden I hear, young man, and I turn, and sure enough, grandma number 4 is coming up the aisle. She's vacated her seat. She's obviously going to give me her seat. Okay, so she's coming. So I look at her and I say, really, I'm fine. At which point, the entire back of the bus, who have now self-deputized themselves as a Greek chorus, say, take the seat. All right, I take the seat, and grandma number 4 goes to where I was standing, okay? She leans in and she says, I might be 75, but I'm really in pretty good shape. I say, you don't look 75 to me. What are you doing Saturday night? She says, that depends. What do you have in mind? I say, I don't know, dinner and a Broadway show. She says, which show? I say, Cats. As soon as I say Cats, out of my left ear I hear, big shot. And I turn, and a black gay guy wearing enough earrings to sink the Intrepid looks at me and says, Cats is closing. Anybody can get tickets to Cats. That's your idea of a big night on the town, is dinner and Cats? You should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed of yourself. I should be ashamed of myself. You should be ashamed. I should be ashamed, 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 ashamed. Ain't it a crying shame that we should be ashamed of ourselves? ashamed of yourself. I should be ashamed of myself. You should really be ashamed of yourself. I can just tell just looking at you. Ashamed, ashamed, ashamed. Ain't a crying shame.